Welcome, Itai. Thank you so much for coming, and congratulations on your gig at 500 Startups. It's a really great group of people, and I was wondering if you could tell me a little bit about what you're doing there.
Sure. So I'm currently an EIR at 500 Startups, working primarily with blockchain and fintech companies. I've helped in the summer, and I'm here for batch 23 currently. Yeah. I spent the last 10 years running my company, Leverate, which I started in Israel in 2008. I was involved along those 10 years with engineering, product, and Asia Pacific. So I moved to Hong Kong 4 years ago to manage Asia. Okay. At 500 Startups, we're currently backing blockchain and crypto-related companies, but mostly on the venture capital equity side. Okay.
So how's it looking at 500 Startups as regards this sea change? Obviously, ICO funding is now taking centre stage almost, and I'm wondering how that is, what the ramifications of that are with your fund.
Sure. So like most VCs in the US, we see a lot of deal flow around blockchain and crypto. We're trying to be very, very careful about making investments in the space because we think there is a lot of noise happening as well. 500 has backed companies. For example, Crypto Mover in batch 22 was a company that makes crypto investments accessible to the Asian investors in a way that lets them diversify their holdings. We're also currently opening a blockchain track that's started in batch 23. One of the companies I'm excited about is actually Loom. Loom develops a high throughput protocol, just like Ethereum, but aiming to solve some very specific problems that might make Ethereum unusable for some use cases. So we're making some bets on the space, but it's mostly looking like regular VC investments for now.
Well, I'm glad to hear that you're looking at the blockchain. It's a pretty exciting area, and I think it's going to disrupt many industries, not just the initial financial industries. How does 500 Startups feel about the ICOs? Because we did have a guy who was actually one of the end of last year they were banding together to do an ICO for all of them. How's that working?
So the token sale is actually disconnected from 500 Startups itself. 20X, the fund you mentioned, is a private initiative by a group of companies, and you should speak to them to get updates about the token sale. Okay. As far as 500 goes, we haven't invested directly into tokens yet. Okay. From my point of view, just knowing both the side of the table of the founders and the VC, I think venture capital is going to be involved in token sales in the future in two ways. One way is going to be leading rounds, so that's something that we see happening increasingly more and more. I think what we'll see in the future is less crowd sales in the broad sense. We will see VCs placing bets on founders and the crowds tagging along, like we see in AngelList with some syndicates. The second way for VCs to get involved in the future is going to be by creating what I call time-bombed companies, or actually that's a term that a friend in Israel has coined, Eden Shochat from Aleph VC. He suggested that VCs should be the early backing for a lot of those token-based companies, but they should come in at the stage before the token is actually minted and sold to the public. So if you will, you're backing a company for a year or two because you know the founders, you believe in the mission, and you can see how they can exit through an ICO. And the moment they do the ICO itself, 2 years later, the company disbands and the protocol stays with all the value that it gives to the users and the community. So I think VC is going to interact with this scene in those two ways in the future.
I think that's a very positive outlook, because my concern is definitely the experience and wisdom that VCs contribute to a startup that they invest in. So it's really good to have them on board.
I think VCs are not going to go away. You could have looked at equity crowdfunding in the same way, but the fact is that smart money remains the kind of capital that founders are looking for. And I know it because I was on that side of the table as well. So I look forward to seeing how VCs and token sales are working together.
I think the token sales are definitely very different than what happened with the crowdfunding. I was here when the crowdfunding started, and it's very different. So
it's more liquid. There is a much bigger energy around it, and the excitement and the talent and also the capital in this space are unprecedented. Yeah. But I think in the essence, when you think about funding, I think we see a lot of funding of ICOs that is going to eventually get washed out, because a lot of very bad projects got funded and released, increased, their funding to uncapped levels.
Yes.
So I think, we are going to sober up. We are going to see a lot of failures. And after those failures, VC and token sales will learn to coexist and, come together to basically back the founders. That's what we want as an ecosystem. This is what we're here for.
Thank you so much, and very encouraging. I look forward to the panel tonight.